So Taylor Black, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Roselle.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know you have a lot, but
Yeah, certainly. So I live in Seattle. I work at Microsoft. I'm in the office of the CTO there. And I also run a institute at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. It's called the Leonum Institute for AI and Emerging Technologies.
yes, and we will dive into all of that. But first, can you tell us how did you get into the world of AI?
Yeah, certainly. In some ways, I happen to be at the right place in the right time. My background is all in venture building, which is kind of building startups and new business lines for existing companies. And I was in the office of the CTO at Microsoft and running an internal venture studio, which is taking ideas and turning them into new business lines for Microsoft when ChatGPT 3.5 happened. And as a result of that AI technology and the way in which we saw it reshaping a lot of Microsoft's work, my work was shifted in many ways to help the company understand how this AI technology works, how to rapidly build things in a venture sort of building sort of way, and right place at the right time. Ended up learning a lot about AI and bringing it into companies, and really how to build it in ways that help support human flourishing.
Just for some background, what year was that?
That would have been 2021.
Can you tell us what is artificial intelligence for those who are not tech savvy or who have not dabbed into the AI world at all?
Yeah, for sure, and it can be kind of complex and scary, right? But at its core, really, AI is a way of organizing and compressing information and finding all of the statistical relationships between pieces of information within its training corpus. So you can imagine it of taking like everything that humans have ever written in the top 20 languages in the world, putting it all into a big database, and then running a machine learning algorithm over it. What that machine learning algorithm then does is it's able to do what's called vectorize, or relate all of the information within that corpus together in a huge statistical web. That statistical web then makes it very easy to recombine any of that information because it understands all of the concepts that are a part of that information. For example, if you have the concept of king in this database and removed from that concept of king the concept of masculine, the machine, as a result of all of the relationships that it's patterned between all of the words in that corpus, would say, oh, if the concept of king no longer has masculine, it must be queen, because there's only masculine or feminine for king and queen. So it has a kind of conceptual understanding of its underlying corpus, but it's only because it's been able to build this huge statistical model on top of that underlying corpus, which allows us to have these kinds of conversations with it. When you type a question into ChatGPT or Gemini or pick your favorite tool, what it's doing is it's taking that question, finding the best statistically related answer to what you just said, and then giving that back to you as a result. Huge achievement from a statistics and math standpoint that really has amazing emergent probabilities.
Wow, yeah, I just watched the documentary about magisterium and how they have to build all of this database. So it is somewhat under our control. What
Very much so.
Okay.
Yep, very much so. The way that this training works is that when you run the algorithm over this data set, it's finding all these statistical relationships. It then kind of, once the training is done, which can take months or sometimes even years because there's a lot of computer cycles that are required in order to get there, what we have then is this kind of this raw model that has a bunch of, and we ask questions about it to see what it can do. But then we wrap around it a harness, is what we use in the industry, a harness to kind of shape its outputs in ways that align more closely to how we want to interact with it as humans. Now, aligning more closely, of course, also means aligning to things like truth, or aligning to things like, don't say bad things, don't say bad words, don't generate bad concepts. Because the training data, of course, is all of the stuff that we humans have written, which includes all of that material as well. And so the harness ends up being kind of a filter or a better way of interacting with the engine that has been built as a result of the model.
Thanks for explaining that. Now I know what you guys use, Harness.
Yeah.
And speaking of, tell us the work you've been doing at the Leonum Institute at the Catholic University of America.
Yeah, certainly. So the Leonum Institute is new. We've only launched a few months ago, and it kind of spans the entire university. And we have three major pillars that we're really focusing on. The first is pedagogy. How do we incorporate this technology and other new technologies into the classroom, into the formation of our students in ways that help their human flourishing in the Catholic anthropological vein, right? There's tools are tools, but these ones particularly kind of impact the way in which we think, the way in which we judge as we use them. And so being able to be well-formed in utilizing these tools in helpful ways is the first thing that Leonum Institute is focused on. And as part of that, we've helped develop some certificates, helped develop with the various schools across the university, and some degree programs, of course, as well. And we're deepening our understanding of this technology in the classroom, importantly there too. The second thing that we're doing as part of the Leonum Institute is technology commercialization. So that's a fancy word of taking some of the research that the university puts out, a lot of the innovation that the university puts out, and finding good homes for it, not only in terms of licenses to companies, but also sometimes creating companies and spinning them out as well. We see this building sort of motion as being a great pedagogical tool too, to really understand how this technology works in solving real problems out there in the world. Through our understanding and research and innovation across the university. Of course, the third pillar, since we're the Bishop's University, we also help both the USCCB and the Vatican in a deeper understanding of this technology so that they can come to better wisdom for us as a church in how we should approach this and how we should think about it.
Wow. Lots of things going on there.
It's very true.
And I love this. On the website for Leonum Institute, it states, aligning with human dignity, truth, and the common good. Can you explain the Catholic teaching on AI? What has the Vatican said about AI?
Yeah, certainly. So Pope Leo has treated this as a very important thing from the beginning of his pontificate, which, of course, I've been very grateful for as a practitioner in this space. He said a number of really important things across a variety of different letters and statements to different groups that have come through the Vatican. One of my favorites, in fact, was for the Builders AI Forum, which I attended last fall. And he said a number of different things, but I think the two key things that he said in particular are being careful with our human relationship with these tools. These tools can kind of simulate our interactions with other humans, right? When you're working with a chatbot and it's giving you responses back, the only analog we as humans have had so far, right, is texting back and forth or chatting back and forth with another human. And so it's important to differentiate that these tools can be powerful, but they're not human. They're not conscious. They never will be, and it's not something we have to worry about from the tool perspective, but really from our own formational and thinking perspective. When I am using this tool, is that something that I am keeping front of mind? Am I also, when I'm using this tool, not offloading things as a human that I should be doing that are important for me as a human to becoming to truth or understanding or my own judgment? Are those still very much in play in my utilization of these tools? And that's a personal moral decision that you're making when you're working with these tools. So that's one aspect that he's touched on in a number of different ways, most beautifully, I think, in terms of realizing that, of course, from the Catholic anthropological view, each of us is uniquely created in our own resemblance of the image of God, right? And so the uniqueness of our voice, of our facial features, of the way in which we inquire and come to answers and come to truth, can't be done in any other way than a Taylor way by me and a Roselle way by you. And so that uniqueness is something that can't be lost. The other thing that he also has touched on is kind of the nature of work, right? Because AI can be used in a variety of different ways that can augment humans in doing their work, but also it can replace certain kinds of work as well. should it replace all kinds of work? Should it replace only things that aren't as unique to human functioning? That's a big question that I'm sure he's going to be wrestling with in his encyclical that folks are anticipating. But that nature of work question, I think, will be very important this particular year because of certain kinds of advances in ways in which we're able to utilize AI in agent sort of ways in the workplace.
Yeah, exactly. And AI continues to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, reports suggest that Pope Leo's first encyclical is nearing publication. Can you tell us, we heard that AI is part of it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's going to be a major feature of the encyclical. I'm also anticipating a lot of great kind of bringing of the concepts of rerum novarum, which of course is one of the reasons why he chose his name of Leo, into dialogue with some of the more novel technology developments that we've had over the last couple of decades. AI, of course, is going to be a major part of that, since the way in which it's reshaping work and how reshaping how we're thinking about the nature of work. And so I'm excited for his thinking there, and certainly he has his work cut out for him. I don't envy him in that position, right? Because Rerum Novarum was such a profound and important document. But I think he's very much up to the task, of course, and I'm looking forward to that. Thinking, particularly because this year, ideally, because of the way in which it really is in lockstep with the technological advances. Up until this point, from an AI standpoint, it's been primarily an individual to AI sort of tool. What we're seeing now, and is going to be growing very quickly over the course of this calendar year and beyond, are agent ecosystems. Agents are kind of AIs that can also do things in addition to just kind of providing a response back to the user. And so they can go do things like write and send an email, or do things like perform a transaction on your behalf, or book a flight, or schedule a meeting. That sort of agentic thing starts getting a little bit more into work, right? The workforce sorts of things. So I think it's going to be a great time to really think about AI's role in all of that, and how we, as particularly from the Catholic social teaching tradition, from the Catholic anthropological tradition, can help inform and enrich those conversations wherever they're being had.
And I have to ask, are you involved at all in those AI conversations?
Of course, yeah, in many of them, yeah.
What does that say that Pope Leo is putting such significance in that?
Yeah, well, I think it's because it's so wide-ranging, right? AI is going to reshape whatever work a human does with a device. So if you use a cell phone, if you use a computer, even in your daily life as opposed to work, there's so many different examples of where we interact with these sorts of machines, and AI is going to be changing all of that in very profound ways. Additionally, too, there's a lot of other sorts of impacts of AI that one has to consider. From a workforce standpoint, just that reshaping of work wherever one is touching a computer ends up being profound, but also the amount of resources necessary for running data centers, the way in which Catholic anthropological thought and social teaching can inform how we think about communities impacted by data center builds and usage and energy usage and all that sort of thing, brings a whole bunch of more complicated moral questions to the fore. And the Catholic Church's teaching is just a great way of approaching a lot of those. They've already thought through a lot of this in a rich sort of way, and now it's kind of in an application of that thinking, that theory, to the practice and technologies that we're seeing today. And it's so timely, and that translation is so important. I'm very excited about all the ways in which the Church has been rising to the occasion on this score.
And in an interview on EWTN's News Nightly, you said you were excited about the evolving inferences on AI.
Yeah.
Should we be worried, or should we be excited of the possibilities?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that there's a lot of excitement to be had. But I think one of the reasons why I can be excited about it is because I understand it pretty well, right? So I encourage folks to really understand the technology well, not in a nerd developer sort of way, although that's great, but in a what is this tool that I'm working with? What's it capable of? How should I think about my use of it? What is happening behind the chat screen to a certain extent? Because when you understand a tool well, then you're able to work with it well and reduce your own fear of what this unknown is, right? So I encourage everyone to kind of learn there. The Leonum has an amazing newsletter that we send out that does a lot of work in this space of trying to translate a lot of the hard technical stuff to things that are more practical, things that folks can understand a little bit more easily, regardless of background. But understanding the tool well can be a great thing there. Where I'm excited about this is that when it's understood as a tool, it can be a great way of helping scientific discovery. It can be a great way of helping one's own self learn things more quickly, or even understand different perspectives in a better way, because it's kind of a living library in many ways of everything that humanity has ever written. Where you're able to dive in deep and do amazing research and thinking with it as a partner, not in a way that replaces the study hall or the important coffee conversations you have with your friends, but in a way that helps you draw connections and pattern your own experience a little bit to better come to insights yourself. I'm excited to see that continue to grow as the technology develops and as we develop better ways of interacting with it, which is a major focus for all of the tech industry right now. Is some of the modalities or the design principles that we're using are in their infancy, and as they develop and as they take into account things like folks like us who have religious worldviews, how can the tools better support that way of thinking, that worldview, so that we can use these tools more effectively?
Speaking of tools, a story I'm working on, I talked with Michael Lyons, Build with Christ AI, and he had this event that helped a nonprofit in the local area with admin work. Tell us, how do you feel that other Catholics are diving into AI?
Well, I think it's fantastic. We've as a faith, we've always been often at the forefront of utilizing technology in incredible ways. The cathedrals and the in Europe, or the music that we use in our liturgy, or even some of the pioneers in early sciences. Some of the early computers were built by Catholics. I think that recognizing our co-creative capacity with our Creator, which is His gift to us, is a really important thing. And I love it that Michael Lyons is kind of showing a great way of doing that by taking problems from the community and bringing them into a context of builders and developers where they can use this technology in ways that help solve problems for communities like parishes and nonprofits and dioceses. We've at Leonum, we see a hackathon or kind of those building moments as a great pedagogical tool too across disciplines, because in order to solve problems for the community, you have to understand them from a variety of different facets. All of those facets often are represented by different majors within the university. And so in fact, we have an example project right now where we're working on an app that helps deacons assess their delivery of homilies. But if you think about the delivery of a homily, there's a bunch of different things that come up as part of that. We need some computer science folks to help us build models so that they can understand what the deacon is doing and provide that feedback. But also we need the vocal performance folks. We need our theater folks. We need our speech-language pathologist folks. And of course our theology and philosophy folks as well. And that sort of building, that sort of coming together in order to create something in solution of a problem ends up being such a great way of building community, being such a great way of understanding other people's perspectives across disciplines. And I'm very, very excited about those kinds of things growing in the Catholic vein, because there are so many problems out there that when we come together, we're able to find better solutions for.
Right, so many nonprofit organizations, so many ministries that need help with that admin work
Yeah.
instead of meeting people, meeting families.
Exactly. Yeah. Can you imagine if your parish priest had more time to be a priest and not just somebody who's signing checks, or not that that's not important, right? But there's certain kinds of work that we want to be able to move around in some ways, or help reduce for certain roles, so that they're able to focus on the more human aspects of their job.
Yes, exactly. And you held your own hackathon, the All Saints Hackathon. Tell us about that.
Yeah, certainly. So we've noticed over the last year or two this growing need for a community of Catholic developers. So there's Catholic developers in every large tech company. There's Catholic developers all over the place. But in doing their work, there isn't really a place for them to go and say, hey, I'm working on this thing in my day job. How would a Catholic approach building this from a technical standpoint? Right? And we get a lot of wisdom from our parish, a lot of wisdom from our church, but that doesn't necessarily help us translate it right into this is how it should be programmed, or this should be the design principle that I'm using in the technical work itself. And so we've been running a bunch of hackathons and have created an open source foundation for Catholics anywhere who are developers working on this sort of technology. An open source foundation allows all of us to kind of come together and like, hey, I'm working on this thing at Microsoft. I can't talk about what I'm working on, but help me translate this concept within Catholic theology or Catholic social teaching, so that we as Catholic developers have a better understanding of its application in this technical sense. As part of that, hackathons end up being a fantastic way of going about that. First, it helps you understand the different capabilities of people who are part of this community, but also it allows you to kind of take on challenges outside of your day job that can be fulfilling for you as a worker, for you as an individual, as kind of helping out the church and your church community. There's great examples within our open source community of developers who have built a daily reading app, or a way of understanding the Psalms of the day, and all sorts of different things that are so fulfilling for them to build because it's fulfilling a piece of their faith. But now they have a community within which to celebrate that and to kind of build together as well. We see this community and the hackathon motion growing over the course of the years, because it ends up being a great way of translating the theology and philosophy of the church to very practical, pragmatic, this is how we should build as a result of that teaching.
So would you say you're excited for the future of all these Catholic developers?
Very much so, right? It's great to have missionally aligned people in every industry area, but particularly industry areas that have such broad impact on humanity.
Yeah, would you say this is sort of an evangelization tool using AI?
Very much so. In fact, we're working with a number of evangelism groups in the Catholic Church to approach these hackathons and think about the kinds of problems that we can help solve for evangelization as part of these builds and this tool work as well.
Yeah, especially with technology and reaching that younger generation, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
can AI be used for the good of the church?
Yes, I think it can, just like any other tool, right? But it takes a little bit of work because it's something that can simulate a lot of the ways in which we think. And simulate's the important word there, right? It can feel like when you get an answer back that from the AI that it has done a lot of thinking and now knows what the truth is or what the right answer is in response to a question. But of course, it only knows the statistically probable answer. Now that ends up being very close often, right? But it doesn't take the burden off of us as knowers to posit whether something is true or not. When we in the Catholic worldview, when we say that something is true, what we're saying is that we're grasping an aspect of being. We are saying that something is real out there in the world. We've understood something about the world in a certain kind of way. That sort of thing, that sort of statement of a truth is something that AI can't really do. Only human knowers can actually do that. Even when you bounce an AI answer off of another system that says whether that answer is correct or not, we've put our own knowledge into there that allows us to do that sort of thing. And so tools being used for the church in that fashion, when they have that sort of nuance, requires a lot of formation and thoughtful use from us, their users, in the service of the church and in the service of whatever we're applying these tools for. And so when you are using these tools in service of the church, thinking through whether it's replacing kind of a human action or whether it's replacing a human connection between two people, it's very important that we be circumspect in that sort of application of this technology to a variety of different church uses. But of course, there already are a number of great examples of this, right? The Vatican using AI to translate speeches into 60 different languages, or another great one I heard, for example, is I was talking with the rector of the Pontifical Oriental Institute, and they had digitized their entire library, which is the largest library, particularly of Eastern Catholic works. And he said that their students were, as a result of having that information available to them, their students were citing works that hadn't been checked out in 150 years. And so you can kind of see this way in which it can be used in a discovery of the riches of the church, or a way of helping provide connection between people as a result of translation and language, and so many other possibilities there as well. Actually, we ran a hackathon last fall at the Pontifical Ukrainian College in Rome after the Builders AI Forum. And the problems that we set ourselves as part of that hackathon were, we have these amazing, rich online communities like Hallow or Word on Fire. How do we help bring that online community into in-person communities? And so we developed a couple of AI tools that help with that, where it can help you discover people in your local area who have similar interests on the basis of what you've been watching on Hallow or watching on Word on Fire, and can bring people around a rosary walk with your dog, or a particular kind of talk at a parish. Those tools are still very nascent. We're kind of building them out, but it's another great example of technology used in service of the church to develop more human connection as a result, right? And I think there's myriad uses that we can apply this to, keeping in mind, though, of course, that kind of careful, this shouldn't be replacing the human connection between us. This shouldn't be replacing the activities that I myself perform that need to remain human.
And the world is increasingly reliant on AI. Should we be worried about that? What challenges does that pose?
Yeah, certainly. There is a we have a term in industry called over-reliance on AI, right? Which is I've seeded certain things beyond what I should seed in terms of my interaction with this tool. And that's not a good thing, right? There's ways in which you can definitely use these tools in self-detrimental sorts of fashions, where you have it provide all of the answers for you, even writing your essays, or God forbid writing a love poem to your wife. It's like, well, part of the import and the reason why you do those things is the way in which it changes you, of course, right? And those are all inappropriate over-reliance sort of uses. And this is why that formation, that kind of hard work and keeping our own things our own, rather than offloading important human tasks to artificial intelligence, is a very kind of difficult and careful path we have to walk. It's the same thing for development of how we use AI in teams, how we use AI in the workplace as well. And it requires a lot of circumspect thinking and conversation as to what should we be doing this, and how can we be sure that we're approaching this from the Catholic anthropological view. Because we can over-rely on it. We can rely too much on these systems. We can build them into places where they don't need to be built. But we're the ones doing it, and we are the ones who need to kind of take the bull by the horns and have those hard conversations of, is this helping us or is it not?
Yeah, and I guess my last question would be, how do you think we as Catholics should approach AI?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. In many ways, I feel like we're best equipped to approach AI because of the depth of our human anthropology, if we know it, right? So there's a bit of an onus on us, perhaps, to understand ourselves a little bit more. One of the silver linings I've found with regard to this technology is it has people coming to me asking me what it means to be human, because their current anthropology, or at least their understanding of how themselves and how they operate, doesn't hold up to the technology, right? They use the technology and they say to themselves, oh, this can do what I can do. Well, there's two things there. One is you need to understand the technology a little bit more to realize that it doesn't do what you do. But you also need to understand yourself a little bit more to realize that it doesn't do what you do, right? And so I think this call for us as Catholics is to lean into our tradition, to lean into all of the riches that the Church has given us over the years in terms of understanding what we are, what we're here to do, and why God has made us the way that we are. And then to help other people understand that too, right? There's a loneliness epidemic. There's kind of a lot of disconnection, a lot of polarization. But this is something that the Church has always been able to really provide us tools to help combat and to struggle against. And we have an opportunity here to help reassure people that there is a deeper understanding of who they are and what they're called to be, and that this technology is a tool, and understanding it well can help augment you in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different tasks, when understood well too, but only in that kind of dichotomy of understanding yourself and understanding the technology well. And that's what we should be doing as Catholics, is understanding this tool and understanding ourselves better so that we can help other people understand that difference and build this technology and use these tools in ways that continue to help humanity flourish in the Catholic anthropological tradition, to help our families, our communities, and our universities flourish as well. But it's up to us, and we have everything we need to be able to do that.
Wow, that's a good way to end it. And I want to ask, if you were to describe AI in one word, what would it be?
That's a good question. Tool. Yeah.
Exactly.
If I had one word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the other words that one could use, the other one that came to mind was super intelligence. But with that, but it's hard to use that as a single word to describe it, because it can conflate what is actually meant by that. And so if I use that as the one word, I'd have to explain it more.
Yeah.
I think AI as tool ends up being the best explanation for it, because we have incredible, amazing tools before AI, right? We can travel at multiple times the speed of sound. We can, build bridges and do all kinds of incredible stuff with the tools that we have. This one is no different in kind from them, right? It can feel a little bit different because of the way in which it can simulate human intellectual activity, which we thought happened only inside of our own heads, and indeed still does happen only inside of our own heads. But because of that simulation, it feels like a different kind of thing when indeed it is not. So AI, tool.
Exactly what I was thinking. Overall, this conversation, you reminded me that it's just a tool. It does not replace human, and we should use it as such. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's everything. Thank you for a lovely conversation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.